A memorable NHL debut for a Kings goalie, and it's a Kings Fan Feedback Friday on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, and we are on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years. I'm also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 18 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app and create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Well, it is a Kings Fan Feedback Friday. We're going to get your emails over the past week from hockey action for the LA Kings and find out what's on your mind. We'll do that in a minute, but we're going to need to recap first the game that the Kings played Friday afternoon in Anaheim as they took on the Ducks. It was game number 24 of the NHL season for the Kings down in Anaheim against a Ducks team that they had beaten in 10 of the last 11 meetings. It was also meeting number 2 on the season between these two teams. First matchup was also in Anaheim, October 20th, a 4-1 win for the Kings. As for the lineup for LA, there would actually be some differences after that big win over Winnipeg. You'd have thought that everything would have stayed exactly the same, but due to some injury issues, we would have some changes. Forward Akil Thomas has been placed on injured reserve, so the Kings called up forward Andre Lee, while forward Trevor Moore also out of the lineup day-to-day with an undisclosed injury. So the top line for the Kings would be the same as we've seen recently. Andrei Kopitar centering Adrian Kempe and Warren Foegele. Second line of Quentin Byfield, Tanner Jeannot, and Alex Turcotte would be moved up to line number 2. Phillip Danault promoted from the fourth line center to the third line center, although as we mentioned on the last show, his minutes played, he was more like the second line center. But anyway, on paper, third line center was Phillip Danault with Kevin Fiala and Alex Laferriere. And the fourth line center was Samuel Helenius with Trevor Moore and Andre Lee called up and into the lineup. The defensive pairings would be the same as we've seen recently. Mike Anderson with Vladislav Gavrikov on the top pairing, Joel Edmondson and Brandt Clark on the second pairing, and Jacob Moverar and Jordan Spence on the third pairing. But the big story for this one, the NHL debut of rookie goalie Erik Portillo with David Rittich serving as the backup. So my big question going into this game was, would the Kings have the same energy and execution, or at least somewhere close to it, that they had in their previous game and their biggest win of the season against the top team of the NHL, the Winnipeg Jets? As for the game summary between the Kings and Ducks, well, LA did not come out with the same forechecking and the same shot mentality as the previous game. Now, it wasn't bad, but it certainly was not as good as it was against Winnipeg, which was at the highest we've seen it all season. Fairly even first period between the two teams. Goalie Erik Portillo showing some early jitters and handling the puck in his NHL debut, but he would settle down and eventually look good. We would have a scoreless first period. Second period, the Ducks would grab a 1-0 lead on a shot that was deflected on net. Portillo made the initial save. Phillip Danault, though, couldn't tie up the Ducks player who followed up his shot, put it in on the rebound, and Anaheim took a 1-0 lead. But the Kings would respond on a nice feed from Alex Laferriere to a streaking Alex Turcotte, who skated in on net and put in a nice wrist shot to even the game at 1-1. In the third period, it would be Laferriere getting the go-ahead goal on a rebound after Phillip Danault put a shot on net. Kings grabbed the 2-1 advantage, and then Erik Portillo would make it stand up with several big saves to win his NHL debut as the Kings hold on for a 2-1 victory. As for the game stats in this one, it was one-sided in favor of the Ducks, to be honest with you, except on the most important place, that was the scoreboard. But the Ducks outshot the Kings 31-18, which was a surprise. Special teams, what we've seen from the Kings of late, good on the penalty kill, not good on the power play. The Ducks were over through the man advantage. The Kings were over 2. Face-offs narrowly favored LA 28-25. Hits favored the Ducks 25-18. And block shots favored Anaheim 20-9. But the Kings get the victory. And as we said, the big story, Erik Portillo winning his NHL debut. Head coach Jim Hiller had the quote of the game afterwards saying, quote, about Portillo, I thought maybe he looked a little nervous early, but boy, did he get himself together in a hurry. There's not much to say. He was fantastic. He was big. That's the one thing I noticed. He was big. His legs are long and quick, and he couldn't have had a better debut, end quote. And I have to be honest, I didn't think Erik Portillo would be this good. Then again, I didn't think the Kings would play in a way that they would need him to be this good. Kings didn't play bad, but nothing like they did in the win over the Jets. The forechecking and the shot mentality was okay. Special teams, like I said, same old, bad power play, good penalty kill. But Erik Portillo turning aside 28 of 29 shots. His rebound control wasn't as good as it probably would need to be against better competition, but all in all, very solid performance by the Kings rookie netminder. He did get a little help from his defenseman, Mikey Anderson and Vladislav Gavrikov, both saved potential goals by sweeping them off the goal line or putting their bodies in between the puck and the net. But again, all in all, a very solid game for the young goaltender. Couple of young forwards also leading the offense for the Kings. Alex Laferriere getting his 10th goal of the season, also had an assist as well, and he would have the game-winning goal. Again, 10th of the year. He had 12 all last season. And then you had Alex Turcotte with a goal on the season. He just has 2, but has been playing with a lot of energy and making a lot of plays. So the 2 Alexes getting in on the goal scoring for the LA Kings. So my big takeaway from this game, we know the Kings are looking for more consistency. It was a good enough performance, but let's be honest, we just are happy with the 2 points against any team right now. The Kings will be looking to do something they haven't done all season, and that's win 3 in a row. And they'll have a chance when they host the Ottawa Senators coming up on Saturday. As for our 3 stars of the game, our number 3 star is Alex Turcotte with a goal, elevated to the top line late in the game. So Jim Hiller, obviously, what can a coach do to show you he's happy with you? Well, give you more ice time or elevate your status with one of the lines. So in the game late, Alex Turcotte was playing on the top line with Kopitar and Kempe. He's been there before, but I thought it was just kind of a nod from Jim Hiller as to how Turcotte was playing in this game and how he's played of late. A lot of energy, just making things happen. Our number 2 star is Alex Laferriere with a goal and an assist. Gets the game-winning goal, and again, 2 goals away from equaling his total from all of last season. But the number 1 star is obviously Erik Portillo. He is the first Kings goalie to win his NHL debut since some guy named Jonathan Quick back in 2007. So again, all in all, the Kings take care of business against the Ducks. It's now, I believe, 11 wins in their last 12 games against Anaheim. So they have dominated the freeway faceoff of late. This one was certainly not a dominant victory, but I don't think we're going to look any win in the eye and not be happy about it at this point after you've seen, some losses to some lesser teams. Would have been great to see the Kings follow up that performance against Winnipeg with a similar type performance. I don't know if they'll ever be able to equal that. It was so good, but something similar. It wasn't quite there. If the Kings played an A game against Winnipeg, then this was probably like a B- game against the Ducks, but good enough to get a win. And the Kings will look to win their 3rd game in a row on Saturday against Ottawa. Again, something they haven't done all season. It is a Kings fan feedback show. Your questions coming up next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Those of us that live here in the LA area, so lucky. We've got so many opportunities to go to so many live events, sports. Yes, I'll be at the Rose Bowl on Saturday to cheer on my beloved alma mater, Fresno State, taking on UCLA in football. And I got my tickets through Gametime. But it's not just about sports. You also have theater events, comedy shows, and of course, concerts too. And Gametime has the tickets to whatever it is you're into. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks. It makes it even easier to save more. The feature shows you the total up front, no surprise fees at checkout, and you get a panoramic view from the seat that you want to buy for in the app before you buy it, so you see exactly the view that you're going to get. You'll get the lowest price guaranteed, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Just download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And if you're a renter, I'd start taking advantage of Built if I were you. We earn points on groceries, travel, and practically everything else we buy, but we should be earning points on rent, one of the biggest monthly expenses. Built changed the game by letting renters earn high value points on rent and around their neighborhood. One of the biggest investments should get you more than just a roof over your head. There is no cost to join Built, and as a member, you'll earn valuable points on rent and on your everyday spending. Built points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, and even the ones you've never heard of. There are over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world you can redeem your Built points towards. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is, why not start earning points on rent that you're already paying for by going to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnail, locked on NHL. That's join, JOIN, built, BILT.com/locked on NHL. Make sure you use our URL so they know that we sent you. Joinbuilt.com/lockedonnhl to start earning points on your rent payments today. All right, let's get to your emails here on this Kings Fan Feedback Friday. Going to read them in the order in which they were received, and some of them may have been edited for time purposes, but I always try and make sure that I keep your main points as part of the email. This one was a quick one from Robert in Hawthorne. He says, the Kings get the skates beaten off them by the Sharks. To me, it seems from a coaching issue. Why is the coach trying to mix things up from lines to the power play? I'm flustered to the max. And that was Robert in Hawthorne. Well, Robert, as far as changing things up on the power play, it stinks. So that's why he's changing things up, because something needs to change. Just doing the same old thing was not working on the power play. As far as the lines, yes, Jim Hiller does like to change things up a lot, maybe a little bit more to my liking. But if you're looking on the positive, I know some people are, and I know, Robert, you've mentioned this before, you're worried about the guys not being able to develop chemistry. I think on the flip side of that is when you don't know who you're playing with, and maybe you don't really care who you're playing with, it focuses more on your game, and you're just doing your job and not worrying about somebody else doing their job. So I think their chemistry can be something, but there's also something to be said to keeping players on their toes and keep them, worrying about their game and not worrying about someone else's game. We have a email from Scott in Simi Valley. He says the loss against the Sharks was ugly, but it's just one game. I'm expecting the Kings to play well against Winnipeg. Well, he was a prophet on that one. He says, I'm wondering, is there an NHL stat for attempted shots versus shots on goal? It seems the Kings almost always get plenty of attempts, but often miss the net. They also pass up slot chances to try a more difficult give and go play. Why not take the high percentage shot every time? I'd be very curious to compare their shooting accuracy to other teams. Is there such a stat? For the power play, can an NHL club decline a penalty like an NFL team can? Maybe it would be smart to do so, as the Kings seldom achieve much on the power play, except giving Hiller another excuse to throw together new lines after they don't score. I like Hiller and the way he tries new things, but he does it too much. Again, that was Scott in Simi Valley. Well, Scott, I did a little research for you. According to statmuse.com, the Kings have attempted 678 shots this season. That is 16th in the NHL. The Kings are also ranked 16th in the NHL in shooting percentage at 10.5. The leader in the NHL is the Washington Capitals at 14.4. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but those are the stats that I found. You cannot decline a penalty in the NHL like you can in the NFL. Even if you could, I'm not sure why you'd want to. I don't know what the benefit would be to that. In the NFL, you obviously decline a penalty because you want to accept the play. I will say this. I've always wondered why the NHL doesn't allow a team to decide if they want to attempt a penalty shot or take a power play. For example, maybe a guy gets fouled on a clear scoring chance and he's not a very good scorer or finisher. Maybe he's, they don't ever use him in the shootout. So why not give them the choice? I mean, a foul has been committed, right? The penalty is called. So why not maybe the team has a really good power play. Why not give them a chance to choose whether they want a power play or a penalty shot? It's just something I've always thought of, but no, you cannot decline a power play in the NHL. Justin in Huntington Beach says, I agree with your over-the-shoulder angel-devil analogy for the Sharks game. After Celebrini goal, it felt like the wheels completely fell off. I have to chalk it up to just one of those nights. I'm not sure how to gauge this team, but great bounce-back game against the top team in Winnipeg. The fact that they showed up this way after a loss shows some heart. Not really sold on the 5-forward power play. They need to mix it up, but Kempe has to be in the sniper position instead of running the point. Clark or Spence will be fine until Doughty comes back. Awesome show as always, and go Kings go. That was Justin in Huntington Beach. I would disagree on the 5 forwards thing. I actually like that, and I'm kind of surprised more teams haven't tried that. It's not something you see much around the NHL, but I like it actually. I will say I do agree with you that I would love to see them have more of a concerted effort of setting up Adrian Kempe on the wings to get his shot off more. He's over there, but it's not. They're not really kind of setting him up as much as I would like to see. Our next email comes from Alan. He's in Sonoma, and he says, "What is the one trade you could actually see the Kings possibly making that would totally excite the fan base?" Again, that was Alan in Sonoma. I honestly don't see a realistic trade out there that would totally excite the fan base. First of all, I don't know how you excite an entire fan base because people are always going to find fault in something. Let's just say, for example, the Nashville Predators have been a big disappointment this year. They picked up Steven Stamkos in the offseason, and it's not really working out. Let's say that they would be willing to send Stamkos to the Kings for Quentin Byfield. There would be plenty of people saying that why are we trading away a young player who's got potential? And we're getting a Hall of Famer, but he's on the decline. It's not like the Kings are a one missing piece away from being a Cup contender. So that things like that, that would be a pretty big trade. I think there'd be plenty of people that wouldn't be all that excited about that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe a Mitch Marner, but it's not like he's also a guy who very talented, but the Kings are looking to have postseason success. Mitch Marner isn't exactly a guy who's been a proven playoff winner. So and they're gonna have to pay him a lot of money if they were to trade for him. So I don't know. I don't see, if you're talking about a realistic trade, not just a fantasy trade, but a real trade that would totally excite the fan base. I don't know that there's one out there, to be totally honest with you right now. We've got more talk on potential trades. That's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Get ready to tackle the NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. And so when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can go check out the latest stats, live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. The Chargers are in Atlanta to take on the Falcons, with the Chargers a 1.5 road favorite. The over-under in the game is 47.5, and the Rams are in New Orleans to face the Saints. Rams are 2.5-point road favorites. Over-under is 49.5. Just visit FanDuel.com. Join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, our next email comes from Zach. He is in Victorville, and he says that he is a first-time emailer. Good to hear from you, Zach. He says, I listened to the pods back and forth from Arizona for work and wanted to propose a trade idea that could work for both teams. Mitch Marner for Vladislav Gavrikov, assuming he decides to hit free agency, Philip Deneau, and a first-round draft pick. LA would get an elite player that can help the power play and 3-on-3 overtime and is also right-handed, which we need more of. And again, that was from Zach, who is in Victorville. It's fun to talk about. I don't know that trade is realistic from a few standpoints. So Mitch Marner is an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. So the Kings would have to sign him. Either it would be like a sign and trade or have some sort of assurances that once he came to LA, he would sign with the Kings. The problem is he's going to be asking for a ton of money, something like $13 million a year. And he's not a proven playoff performer. He's again, really talented guy, does a lot of great things during the regular season. But once he gets in the playoffs, he just has not proven that he's a difference maker. And again, the Kings are not just looking to get in the playoffs, they're looking to advance in the playoffs. So I don't know that Mitch Marner is necessarily that guy. Plus, I think the Maple Leafs would want more than Vladislav Gavrikov, Philip Deneau, and what would be a middle of the pack draft pick. So you'd have to throw in more than that, I would think, to get Mitch Marner. And then again, you'd have to sign him. And then again, Mitch Marner also has a full no movement clause. So he gets to decide whether he wants to come to LA or not. And I don't know that he does. I don't know that he doesn't, but I don't know that he does. So I get the idea of Mitch Marner, a guy that the Leafs might be looking to trade. But again, really expensive, not a proven playoff performer. And again, does he want to come to LA? Those are all factors that would have to be figured out. So I would say that's it's not a look. Your offer, I think, is great from the Kings standpoint if they could make that happen. But I don't know that's going to happen. I have a hard time believing that would happen. This comes from Michael in Long Beach. It says, I just finished watching your panic mode video on YouTube. I believe it's much too soon to be hitting the panic button. With that being said, there have been some major issue flaws on the part of the front office. There are holes to fill in our roster, namely the hit it factor. Dustin Brown's role has had to be added. When Brown was on the ice, he forced turnovers due to his physical play. We are missing that intimidation. If there is to be an offensive strategy, we need someone who will force the opponent to cough up the puck and make mistakes. Quick has been excellent since becoming a Ranger. The fact that the Kings traded him without a suitable replacement is just bonkers to me. The front office's inability to fill important gaps and lack of foresight combined with abysmal signings is a large part of the problem. If the Kings can get some chemistry going, I think they'll look good. But if the it factors remain empty, then there will be a long, hard look at the panic button. And that was from Michael in Long Beach. Well, the Kings went out this offseason and tried to address being a more physical team. I think when he's playing his game, Tanner Jeannot does fill that role pretty well. The problem is he doesn't play that role every night. I think Warren Fogle is certainly a blue-collar, playoff type guy, and has done a very good job joining the Kings. Joel Edmondson I have not been wowed in any way by his physical play. We were told that he would come with some attitude. I haven't seen it on the ice, and he's just been okay. But that contract is way too much for a guy who's just okay. As far as Jonathan Quick goes, he's done a great job since he left as a backup. I don't know that he was going to be excited and motivated to play that role with the LA Kings, but going back home, back to the East Coast to play for a team that he loved growing up probably helped him to accept that role and embrace it a little bit more. Certainly Cal Peterson was a miscalculation. I don't know who told Rob Blake that this guy was going to be the next number one goalie for the Kings, but obviously that was some bad advice, and they ended up having to get rid of some assets just to get his contract off of the books. Our next email comes from Brian in Los Alamitos. He says, Happy Thanksgiving. Same to you, Brian. He says, do you know the injury status of Arthur Kaliyev? Is he close to coming back? And when he does come back, will he immediately be given a spot in the lineup? I imagine he would, since he's on a 1-year deal and has missed a good chunk of the games. Therefore, he'll need every single minute of every game he plays to prove himself and prove that he belongs in the NHL before the season ends. Lastly, I would just like to say I really appreciate the fan feedback shows. Hearing the optimism from you and other Kings fans helps calm my nerves after losses to teams like San Jose and Chicago. Thanks for another great week of shows. And that was Brian in Los Alamitos. Well, Brian, if it makes you feel any better, right after a loss like that, San Jose, Chicago, I'm probably exactly like you. I have a decent ability to, though, take a deep breath and then the next day calm down and then kind of try and look at it in perspective. As far as Arthur Kaliyev, he's back skating, apparently working on his conditioning, but should be back soon. Where he fits in the lineup is a great question. I would guess you could take out Tanner Jeannot off of the second line or the third line and put him down on the fourth line. And then you would put Alex Laferriere, I think, on the second line. Then you could slide Kaliev into that third line winger position. But again, Kaliev is a guy who's kind of in between. He needs minutes and he needs a lot of shot attempts to be able to take advantage of the shot that he has. Doesn't create his own shot, doesn't hit, doesn't play much defense. So you need to give him top 6 minutes, but yet he doesn't do anything else to earn those minutes as far as all the other things he does. So then you put him on a third or fourth line and he just doesn't get the minutes to be able to be a productive player. So I'm not real optimistic about Arthur Kaliev's future with the LA Kings. It was unfortunate that he got hurt in the preseason because it looked like he was going to get a kind of a fresh start, a clean slate, and kind of start from scratch and see what he could do. But then he got hurt and then he's missed most of the season. So certainly, a guy like Alex Turcotte has gotten a lot more minutes and a more valuable position in the lineup over a guy like Arthur Kaliev. And, Turcotte's earned it. And Kaliev is going to have a tough time trying to get into a better spot in the lineup, I would say, for him. So it'll be interesting to see how much of a chance he gets. But it feels like it's just going to be the same situation for Arthur Kaliev as we've seen in the recent past, where he doesn't get the minutes and he just doesn't have the production to kind of justify his time in the lineup. Obviously, I want to thank you guys for all of the emails. This show is literally not possible without your participation. So thank you for that. Don't forget, Kings Senators is Saturday, 4 p.m. LA time. Game will be televised locally on the FanDuel Sports Network, nationally on ESPN+. You can hear it on the 710 ESPN app. I will not be out at the game. As I mentioned, I'll be at the Rose Bowl cheering on my gritty, gutty Fresno State Bulldogs as they beat UCLA, hopefully. I did want to mention the guys over at Locked On Senators had me on their show as a guest to preview Saturday's game. So check that out on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Senators. Those guys do an awesome job on that show, and it's really cool to be on as a guest to talk about the Kings with them. For you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, next week is interesting because the Kings only play one game Monday through Friday. So coming up next Monday, we will recap that Kings Senators game, give you any news from over the weekend. Tuesday, we will have a special guest on to discuss the Kings' recent play and also the season so far. Wednesday, we'll preview the Kings Stars game. Thursday, recap that game. And then on Friday, have another Kings fan feedback show. The email address, as always, to get in on that, lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. You can always leave your comments if you're watching on YouTube in the comments section. I also love you to stay interactive with the show on social media, X, Twitter, and Instagram. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you, as always, for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday. And as always, go Kings, go.